Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beer and Money. My name is Ryan Burklo, and on today's episode, we're going to be going through what we call a cash flow management system. What I mean by cash flow management system is, as money is entering your world, what is your process in terms of figuring out what to do with it, right? Do you even know? I would argue that today's episode, if you were to just take this episode and actually implement some version of a cash flow management system in your world, it would probably be the most valuable thing you could possibly do in terms of building wealth and, frankly, having purpose to what you want with your money. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially nowadays, right? Everything post COVID has driven us into this world, which is good. This is the good aspect of it, of a lot of people are starting to really think about what's the purpose of their money. Like, they're working their tails off, but they're losing time, and they're losing time with their kids. They're losing time with their family. They're losing time with their loved ones and friends. And they want to get that back. And the best way to get that back is to have a true understanding of what's going on with your money. Let me put it out there real quick. I am not trying to say that this is a big budget conversation. Matter of fact, it's the opposite of that. It's actually trying to figure out where you want to spend your money. So without further ado, let's dive into your cash flow, or what we typically see as a cash flow management system out there. So if you haven't checked this out on YouTube, this would probably be a good episode to check out on YouTube. I'm sharing a couple of concepts to bring the visual side of what I'm saying. If you listen to this in your car, I'll do my best to make sure I describe it well enough so that you understand these concepts. Make sure you go back to the YouTube channel and watch the visual side of this, okay? So let's dive into this. So what is the typical cash flow system that we see? And I would say that most Americans have this system. And what it looks like is this. You go to work and you get a paycheck. We're going to call that income, right? The income, or your paycheck, comes into your checking account. And then what do you do when the money enters your checking account? Oftentimes it's spent in lifestyle. And let's just define lifestyle real quick. We're talking about taxes, vacations, right? And obviously the mortgages and the basic expenses. It's essentially what you're not saving. That's what lifestyle is. And at the end, it's like whatever's left over, that's what we'll save. Like, that's really how it is. The income comes in the door, enters your checking account, then we spend it. And then if we have any money left over, maybe we save some of that money. And the issue is, and kind of going back to the original point of when I started this episode, was our lifestyles plug directly into our income, and we're spending by default and saving by decision. Why don't we spend by decision and save by default? Meaning, if we're trying to buy back our time so that we no longer have to work if we want, right? Or maybe in some version of this, maybe it's a slow retirement, meaning you don't work as hard, you don't work as many hours, so you take less pay, or, right, you take more days off so you can spend time with your family. But the fact of the matter is our typical cash flow management system that we currently have, everything's plugged in. Like, our energy source is plugged into our income stream. And that creates this phantom drain on our income over time. Now, stop and think about that for just a second. Like, every time I bring this up to someone, we talk about what phantom drain is, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm sure I'm spending money that I don't even know that I'm spending. Like, that's common, especially in today's subscription environment. And here's some bigger questions to consider. Do you even know how much money entered your checking account last year? You might be able to go back and double check it, or maybe you've got so many different checking accounts that they're going into, it's hard to really aggregate how much money entered your world and then aggregate where all that money went. And I'm not talking about a line by line. I'm just talking about, like, if you made $100,000 last year, you kept 20,000 of it. Do you even know that the number of keeping is 20 grand? Do we know that number? So we have to interrupt this system. And the way we interrupt the system is by having a blocker, right? Something that blocks us from getting after that money, not from a standpoint of a budget or a negative aspect. It's more of, how do we bring all of our money into one account and then decide to spend the money where we want to spend? So here's what that system looks like. The income will come into what we classify as a wealth building account, okay, or WBA. If you read any of our blogs and it says WBA as an acronym, we're talking about a wealth building account. So your income comes into the wealth building account. Then you decide how much money to put into your checking account per paycheck. And then we go around spending the money like we originally thought, or like we were originally accustomed to. Here's what this looks like. I'm going to draw it out on my screen just so where I'm making sense. If we have $20,000 a month, say, coming into our world, that money, the paycheck, enters your wealth building account. And let's just say you go through and you do some research and you're like, you know what, to live the life that I want, I know I need 15,000 of that. And that's the lifestyle that you want, right? That means you get to capture the $5,000. So essentially what happens is, of the 20 that's sitting here in the wealth building account, an automatic transfer occurs of $15,000 into your checking account. And then you go spend it where you want and have fun with it. That's the whole reason for working, is to enjoy life. And what's captured in this wealth building account automatically is that $5,000 a month. Now stop and think about that for just a second. It's an automatic capture, right? $20,000 enters your world on a monthly basis. In this example, it goes into the wealth building account. 15,000 gets transferred into your checking account from your wealth building account. So automatically $5,000 is getting saved per month. And what does this allow us to do? Right? What this allows us to do is build wealth. So as our wealth building account is growing, so imagine you're saving $5,000 a month, 12 months, you got $60,000 sitting there. Maybe that's where you redeploy money into investment accounts, retirement accounts. Maybe you start a business. Like, just think about what that would feel like when you know you're saving $5,000 a month automatically, and it doesn't even affect your life. Let me just be clear about that. If this is done correctly, you won't even notice the lifestyle difference, right? Because here's what really happens over the grand scheme of things. If you're making, going back to that $100,000, that $20,000 figure a month, if next year your income goes up and it goes up by $2,000 a month, so next year you're making $22,000 a month, what typically happens when you get a pay raise? Oftentimes, our lifestyle keeps pace with our pay raise. And that's an issue. Let me show you what I mean by that. So imagine we've got someone that has an income stream coming in the door, right? And let's just say the income stream is $200,000 a year. And on average, the income increases by 4% over a 30-year period of time. So 4% increases over 30 years. It's kind of like keeping pace with inflation. What also normally happens is the expenses also go up by 4%. Like, think about it from this perspective. 10 years ago, how much money were you making? Right? If you're making 200K right now, maybe 10 years ago, you were making, I don't know, 75,000 a year. How has expenses kept pace with that, right? Maybe kids have come, right? That definitely has a play. But again, going back to what I said, normally as income comes in the door, we're spending it and we're keeping pace with everything. Well, what if we can constrain our expenses, where as opposed to our expenses going up by 4%, the same amount as our income? What if we can constrain it and our expenses only go up by 3% as opposed to the 4%? Here's what I mean. There's this increased wealth building opportunity over time, right? Because let's just face it, your lifestyle is what it is today. For a lot of us, for us to say, you know what, I'm going to go start saving 20% more of my income or 10%, whatever that figure is, it's really hard to do. But it's much easier to do over time if you have a process to capture it. Hence the wealth building account. So let's go over some numbers. If we're looking at someone that's making that $200,000 a year and it's increasing at 4% per year, and let's just say their expenses are $195, which means they're only saving $5,000 per year. And their expenses are also increasing by that 4%. What that means is they're saving 2.5% of their income. If you take $5,000, what they're saving, divide that by 200,000, you get 2.5%. If this person saves that money, that $5,000 or that 2.5% of their income over the next 30 years, every year, and they get, and I'm using relatively simplistic numbers here, they invested and they get a 5% rate of return. 30 years from now, they'll have $566,000. That's their future wealth 30 years from now. But what if this person could save that 1% difference? So let me re-explain what I mean. If your income's going up by 4% every year, in this example I just shared with you is the expenses are also going up by 4% per year. What if your expenses only went up by 3% and you're able to capture that 1% difference? Like, said another way, if you had an automatic savings routine and it just captured 1% of your paycheck every time, would you even notice that money is gone? Like, if you're making $200,000, 1% of $200,000 is $2,000 a year. Would you notice that amount of money in your life? Like, would it really affect your lifestyle? To most people, the answer to that question is no. You would not notice a 1% difference. But what does that 1% difference compound to over a 30-year period of time? Let's analyze that. What happens is this: as your income's going up by 4% every year, if your expenses only go up by 3%, your investing savings rate is compounding, meaning next year you're actually saving more than 2.5%. And what this looks like over time, if you were to do that, rather than having $566,000, you would have over $3.2 million at that same 5% rate of return figure in 30 years compared to 566, all by having a 1% difference year by year. And the way you capture that 1%, going back to the plan or the system, is making sure that you've got the wealth building account, right? That surge protector, if you will. All the money enters that account. Because think about this again, 200K today, 10 years from now, maybe it's 350, 400,000 per year. Okay. How are you capturing that additional money? Specifically, what's the process to do it? This process would do it, because here's what happens, and this happens to my clients all the time. Every January we sit down, they're used to, going back to my figures again, if they're used to the $20,000 of income coming in the door and they're used to a $15,000 of lifestyle per month, now we get to have a conversation that looks like this. Mr. and Mrs. Client, your income is now $22,000 per month. You were kicking out $15,000 of lifestyle. How much of the additional $2,000 do you want to have go to your lifestyle? And I often get some version of this. It's normally 50% of the number, which means now the $22,000 enter their wealth building account. And now they're kicking out $16,000 into their checking account. So they upgraded their lifestyle by $1,000 a month and they go live their life. But guess what? Now they're capturing in their savings account. Now they're capturing $6,000. Whereas last year they were capturing $5,000. And it was all by choice, by decision. How much easier would it be if we could live that way? So the whole reason I'm going over this is this is just a very simplistic way of managing your finances, your money that's coming into your household, and having decision as to where you want to spend it and how much of it you want to spend based on what your goals are. So I hope this episode was valuable for you. If you got anything out of this, like, this is a conversation I have, and it doesn't even matter the amount of money you make. Matter of fact, the more money you make, the more valuable this conversation is. Because think about it from this perspective. When you were making 50 grand a year, I'm guessing you knew where every penny went. But now that you're making 300 grand a year, or 350 or 400 grand a year, I'm guessing you don't know to the penny where your expenses are. This conversation helps you decide where you want to spend your money and where you want to put your time. So if you got any value out of this, share this with your family, share this with your coworkers. Because again, the whole reason we started this podcast is to help you think differently about your money and see what's possible with your money. As always, we hope this episode was valuable for you. Cheers.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by Park Avenue Securities, Guardian, or Quantified Financial Partners, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. This material is intended for general public use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities LLC is not undertaking to provide investment advice or a recommendation for any specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Please contact a financial representative for guidance and information that is specific to your individual situation. Ryan and Alex are registered representatives and financial advisors of Park Avenue Securities LLC, OSJ 200 Market Street, Suite 1850, Portland, Oregon 97201. Phone number 503-221-1226. Securities products and advisory services offered through Park Avenue Securities, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representatives of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. Park Avenue Securities is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Quantified Financial Partners is not an affiliate or subsidiary of Park Avenue Securities or Guardian. Ryan Burklo, CA Insurance License Number 0K24924. Alexander Collins, CA Insurance License Number 0H24806.
7242717.1. Expiration date October 2026.